Have you ever visited Russia before?
I have been to Russia many times before. I am a great fan of Russia. It's one of my favorite countries in the world. So I'm very happy to be back here again.
Please, can you tell about your academic topics and your researches in the recent years you're studying?
I have published mainly on Aristotle, and I started life with an interest more in ethics and the relationship between ethics and metaphysics. And afterwards, I moved into the area of physics, but again, physics with a relationship to metaphysics. And so you could say that my three main areas of concentration are ethics, physics, and metaphysics.
In your opinion, is the study of antique philosophy useful for the modern society? And if yes, why? And if not, also why?
I think philosophy is extremely important for modern society. There are so many things that people do not understand, do not realize that they do in their daily lives that are influenced by philosophy. This is something enormously important. For example, just to give you one example, people are very interested in science and the progress of science, and they are very strongly influenced by technology. But they do not realize that the origin of this importance attached to science and technology goes right back to Aristotle, who said that science is more important than ethics. And I think this has enormous consequences for our society, where we see that ethics is considered to be of secondary importance. It has importance, but science seems to be more a priority. And I think it should be the other way around.
Oh, and what about your country? How now the antique philosophy is started? Are there any changes in recent times?
I come originally from Ireland, but I live in Belgium. I've been living in Belgium now for longer than I would like to tell you. So I can talk to you better about Belgium. What can I tell you about the way
how the antique philosophy studied?
Studied, yes. Well, in Belgium, we are rather fortunate that we have a tradition, still a strong tradition in the schools of pupils learning Latin, and even quite a lot of them still learning Greek. I think it's the strongest tradition anywhere in the world. I don't think there's any other country where so many pupils in secondary school from the age of 12 are learning Latin, and from the age of 13 learning Greek. So this has quite an impact on what students choose later. We have quite a number of students who take ancient philosophy and even who take classics at the university in order to become teachers of Latin and Greek. And it means that in the area of ancient philosophy, which is my area, we have people working with a good knowledge of both Latin and Greek. And that's something very important to reach a high standard in these areas.
Imagine you have a possibility to influence somehow the system of education of the antique philosophy. which steps would you take? What changes do you think are needed now for the antique studies?
Well, I think it's very important always to have a considerable number of people who know Latin and Greek in our Western societies, because so much of our Western culture depends on ancient culture, on ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And up to the 19th century, certainly, there was a very strong tradition of knowing Latin and Greek. And we cannot lose our Western culture. This is something very important. We need to strengthen our ancient culture, our Western culture, by a greater study of the ancient cultures, Latin and Greek cultures. So I think it's very, very important to put more money into teaching Latin and Greek and building up departments of the humanities, not only Latin and Greek, but also ancient architecture, archaeology, history. All of these areas, they need to be supported and revived because only some people are realizing at the present time that we are in great danger now of actually losing our European identity because we are losing too much of the past.
Concerning this conference, could you say about your presentation and what is concerning it about?
Yes, I will be happy to say something. My paper is entitled Plato's Concept of Chance. And this is a rather interesting topic because most people don't realize to what extent people in ancient times were religious and saw the influence of God in their lives. But from the very earliest times, so from the time of Homer, the Greeks believed that there are two things sent by God into human life. There is fate, which I think we translate into Russian by судьба, fate, and there's also chance, which is случайно, I think would be quite a translation, случайно. So that our human lives are influenced by fate and also by things that happen by chance. Now, we all have an experience in our lives of things happening by chance, but some people say, well, what happened by chance was really providential. You see, I don't know, you say in Russian maybe провиден or something like that.
Провидение.
Провидение. So some people feel this, but other people just think that what happens by chance is by chance, there's no explanation. But in ancient times, for the Greeks, what happened by chance was not really by chance. It's sent by God. And the interesting thing is that Plato was the first philosopher to bring that idea into philosophy. See, it was a general idea among the Greek peoples, and you find it reflected in different kinds of poetry, in Greek tragedy especially, but also in history and in medical works. So in every area of ancient thought, except for philosophy, strangely, yes. So the earliest philosophers who talked about chance were Empedocles and Heraclitus and Anaxagoras, and they saw chance occurring in nature. So I think природа, in nature, yes. And they thought that things happen just by chance, haphazardly. I don't know what is the right Russian word for that. but without any explanation in nature. But they didn't talk at all about chance in human life. And so the first person to introduce the idea that chance and fate come from God was Plato. And that's why I'm interested in this subject.
And what about the atmosphere of the conference, and what about the atmosphere of St. Petersburg, the city where the conference, our great conference, is located?
Отлично. Wonderful. So I am really amazed at how well this conference is organized. We are in the most beautiful conference room, completely modern, and in this wonderful building, which is a palace. It's a palace with wonderful portraits along the corridor, which I was admiring yesterday. And there is a very, very well-organized team of young men who are organizing every aspect of the conference and are very enthusiastic. And yesterday evening we were invited to a most wonderful dinner. Not just a dinner, because first of all we had an aperitif with a young lady playing the harp, very beautifully, and then we went into the dining room, and there was a group of 4 young men who played chamber music, and very nice chamber music. So first of all we had food for the soul, and afterwards we had a most wonderful dinner, delicious dinner of the highest quality. So I'm extremely grateful to the organizers of this conference for doing such a wonderful job, who organizing it really excellently. And then St. Petersburg, of course, it's the top location. This used to be the capital city of Russia. Now it's only the second city, but it's still a capital. And there are the most wonderful things to see in St. Petersburg. This is my 3rd visit, and there are still many things I haven't seen. So I'm very happy to be here in St. Petersburg.
Please, wish something to Russian colleagues.
Well, I would like to wish the Russian colleagues a lot of success, of course, but especially I would like to see something that is developing now so well in Russia, because I have been coming to Russia since the 1990s, and I see a big development and great, wonderful progress. And I would like to wish more and more interest in classical philosophy, Plato and Aristotle and ancient philosophy in general, and revival of everything that contribute to bringing Russia ever closer to Europe, because personally I feel very strongly that Russia is part of Europe, and it's a big mistake for people to think there is Europe and Russia. No, Russia is part of Europe, and so I wish the colleagues a lot of our good philosophy to bring us all ever closer together.
Thank you so much.